Welcome back to Innovators with Jane King. I'm David Grasso with Bold TV. Today we're going to debate whether or not buying a home is a good way for young Americans to build wealth. Young Americans in today's economy have been locked out of the housing market and have struggled to build wealth. Will buying a home help them catch up to the generations before them? Joining me to discuss this issue is Jacky. He's the founder and CEO of DMG Investments, Mastroeni, a real estate and personal finance writer, and Dror, Poleg, the author of Rethinking Real Estate, a roadmap to technology's impact on the world's largest asset class. How's my panel doing?
Great.
Very good.
Let's start with you. Good idea to buy a home?
Definitely. Buying a home is a great way to build wealth, and I think it's a good way for young Americans to get into that market.
But Jacky, it's gotten a little expensive. Do you think that's still a good idea these days?
I think buying a home, only if you want to live in that home. So like if you want to spend the next couple of years in that unit or that home, buy it. But if for the investment, you have all the other types of the investment tool you can choose. Yeah.
Okay, Dror, where are you on this?
So in theory, it's a good idea to buy a home. In practice, for most millennials, it's not a good idea. It's good to invest in real estate, and there's many ways to do it and diversified ways to do it, but just putting all your net worth in one single asset for the next 30 years is not something I would do if I was the average millennial.
Okay, so we've established that living in your own home is a good idea. How about buying an investment home? Do you think it's a good idea?
So I think it can be a great idea to leverage wealth if you can afford it. I know there are barriers for millennials, but if they can get into it, yeah.
So why do you guys think young Americans are so behind financially compared to other generations? And do you think they're locked out of real estate, or do you really think it's a mindset?
I think there are barriers. Obviously, student loans are a huge one. Student loans impact your debt-to-income ratio, they impact your credit, and they impact your ability to save for a down payment. So,
Jacky?
They're just young.
They're just young?
Younger, right?
We're not all different.
Yeah, it takes time.
Young.
It takes time for them to build up on their no matter career or their investment. So I think, for the investing to real estate, there's so many different tools. Buying a home just one way. You have other, like you have REITs you can invest into. You have crowdfunding you can invest into. Private equity fund you can invest into. So buying a home just one way.
Dror, are we behind because we're young, or are we behind because our timing's off?
Not just because we're young. I would add that the job market today is very different from what it was 40 or 50 years ago. So in the past, the way you work, the way houses are funded, and the economy in general were all aligned towards creating wealth for people. So I would have a job. I knew that I could stay with the same company for 30, 40 years, which meant that I could take a mortgage for 30, 40 years.
And if they relocated you, they would buy your house.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't exist.
And also I was living in a country in the US in the 50s, 60s, where the economy is growing pretty fast, where population is growing pretty fast, where cars determine where people live, and kind of the next 30 years look pretty clear. Today, when you look ahead, you have no idea where you're going to work in 5 or 10 years. The economy is growing very, very slowly. Interest rates are currently not very clear where they're going. And the way people live is about to be transformed by self-driving cars and drones and all sorts of things. And we have no idea where people will actually want to live or not want to live. But today where they want to live is in cities that are very expensive. And most millennials cannot afford to buy here. So they can afford to buy somewhere else. But that somewhere else is probably not the best place to invest 100% of your net worth in.
But you live in Philadelphia. That's an affordable city. But the problem is for a lot of millennials, it's psychological, right? That's a lot of debt to go into, right? When you sign the paperwork. Do you think that puts off a lot of young people from buying a home, even when the numbers make sense?
I do think it makes a lot of people more cautious, I guess. A lot of millennials came of age during the Great Recession, and they saw what happened to their parents and their parents' finances, and I think that they're going towards, when they buy a home, smaller homes and more affordable mortgages so that they don't have those same problems.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Jacky? There's a psychological barrier to all of this.
Right now, the interest rate is still low.
And it's going lower because of the current coronavirus outbreak in China. Yeah.
That's right. So and if you need a home, buy it because the interest rate is still low. But again, if you want to buy multiple one to trying to leverage your debt, not a good idea. Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I agree that, there are psychological barriers, but psychological barriers are often very rational. You know, we're psychologically afraid of fire. It doesn't mean that we should jump into it.
But we need fire for cooking,
Yeah,
right?
so I mean,
yeah.
the great financial crisis made people scared because they should be scared, because the world today is much less predictable than it once was. And, you know, again, the employment market is less stable, financial markets are less stable. So I wouldn't put my net worth, all of it, into anything, regardless if it's a home or something else. So if you can afford to diversify, and the home that you buy for yourself is maybe 20% of all your net worth, and you do something else with the rest, wonderful. But most people can't afford that, so they probably should park most of their money in other things.
So we're just quickly down the panel. Do you own your own home?
I don't, but I'm in the market right now.
Okay, how about you, Jacky?
Yes, I do.
Yes?
Yeah.
And it's paid off for you?
I'm on that also. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
I
Dror?
currently don't, but I have other real estate investments that I'm excited.
Okay, so you're the opposite of what Jacky's
Right.
saying. You own other real estate, but actually don't own the place that you live
Because
in.
they're better investments. I live in New York, where based on the cap rates, based on the return, it just doesn't make sense for me to buy the place that I want to live in. But it makes sense for me to invest in other places where I get a better return for my money while I sleep.
Well, what a crazy world we live in. Thank you very much for the spirited discussion, guys. And thank you all for joining me for today for Innovators. We'll be back soon with a new panel.